Today we have a very special guest, Pat Aherne, who is a Irish third-generation conventional dairy farmer with an unconventional outlook. It was by a happy accident that Pat discovered homeopathy in 2010, an event that would change his life. By 2012, he was so impressed with the dramatic reduction in his use of antibiotics in his herd that he began to research more into homeopathy. And then in November 2017, got the opportunity to do a once-in-a-lifetime residential week-long course in the UK focused on homeopathy in farming. Pat is also working with an organisation called Whole Health Agriculture. That's www.wholehealthag.org, a website with a wealth of expert information and farmer and vet-based knowledge. They also run an excellent online course. Irish farmers can click on the link in the bio for more information, and international farmers as well. You can also follow Pat on social media. Just search for the Homeopath Farmer on Facebook and Instagram. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Homeopathy Hangout, where we discuss all things homeopathy from around the world. And now my mum and your host, Eugenie Kruger.
Hello, homies, and a very warm welcome to Homeopathy Hangouts. Today, we get to speak with Pat Aherne in Ireland. Welcome, Pat.
Hello, Eugenie. How are you? Glad to have an opportunity to chat to you.
I'm great. I always love the Irish accent. One of my best friends is Irish. And yeah, I always find I understand her better after a couple of beers, though.
Yes, we freely talk.
If I have a few beers, I understand her better.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit, Pat. How were you first introduced to homeopathy?
Well, I suppose, first of all, I'm from Cork, the south of Ireland. And as you said, with the Irish accent, Cork in particular, we speak very fast. Even the rest of the people outside of Cork have a trouble understanding us. So hopefully your listeners will be able to understand me. But yeah, I'm a dairy farmer from south of Cork, just outside Cork City, between Cork Airport. And shall I say, I kind of stumbled into homeopathy about 13 years ago now after a major outbreak of mastitis. And I was utterly fascinated that a bottle of water could actually do this.
Utterly.
So, yeah, and I was, and he was, keep it, this is my big secret. Don't tell anyone because you're definitely losing your marbles. And Google was still in its infancy. So I started Googling, and anything I was finding was on humans. Now, I didn't realize that homeopathy is for everything, every living thing, from goldfish to humans to cows to elephants. But I kind of got interested in reading up on the human side, and eventually, by chance, stumbled across, I'd say nearly after 5 years, stumbled across this website, of all places, down in New Zealand. And it was Homeopathy Farm Services, I think it is. And they had a book, first time a book on animals. And to be able to buy a book from New Zealand when there's plenty of books here in Ireland about farming, but not about homeopathy. And wow, that was an eye opener. And then everything, as you know, Google got smarter and realized what you were looking for. And eventually I ended up stumbling across a website called Homeopathy at Welly Level, got in contact with the secretary, and long story short, ended up doing their one-off residential course in November 17. And literally, I parked up the old world and I started on a whole new journey. I'm on a different trajectory, and it has been amazing. What I've learned, not just in farming, but the contacts, the friends I've made internationally, nationally, Irish farmers that I'd never would have spoken to. We wouldn't have crossed paths, and they've gone on to do the course that I've done. And yeah, none of them have regretted doing it. It's an eye opener. But also, I now realizing what I see with animals, I now understand that this is most certainly can be done with humans. I've used it myself for various things, and it's a game changer, without a doubt.
That's so cool. I want to tell you a funny story. So the author of that book that you would have had, Tinica Verkada from New Zealand, she was one of the lecturers at my college. And that was actually, each of us received a copy of her book when we graduated. So I actually have that book that you would have received. I've never used it. It's just sitting here. We've got a couple of sheep, no cows. But yeah, I've had it all this time. It was one of our gifts, our graduation gifts.
Yeah, small world is the homeopathic community. We all seem to have something connecting us, so yeah.
Absolutely. And then, of course, the lovely people at Homeopathy at Welly Level, they've been on the podcast as well. And I didn't get it when they said about Welly Level. I'm like, I said to her, is Welly a place? And she's like, no, like gumboots. I'm like, oh, okay, Homeopathy at gumboot level. Okay, I get it. We call it gumboots over
Yes,
here.
yes.
And what was some of your first things that you used homeopathy for on your herd?
Well, a real game changer was, again, in my infancy and really lack of knowledge, was I had a cow got E. coli. Now, you know how vicious E. coli can be. Perfectly healthy animal. She was literally flat to the mat, skin and bone, in the case of 48 hours. Two vets had seen her, pumped her with drugs, and both of them gave me their professional opinion. And I can say, between the two of them, there was easily 40 years of experience between them. So these guys knew what they were talking about. And they said, no, I'm sorry, the cow's not going to make it. And I was gutted. She was an old lady, and I was like, no, there's more in her, You just can't let her die from this disease. So I contacted the guy that was supplying me the homeopathy in large volume, and like he would make it up, and then you just put it into the water. And I said, look, this cow is such and such. And he says, that's no problem. He says, look, if you can get a tube back her throat and just give her, he has a particular mineral dose and trace elements. And he says, just give her that, because that's the only source of food she has. Give her that until I get my bottle of magic. Which at the time I didn't know what it was. I'm assuming it was the E. coli noocyte and a couple of other remedies included. It to you in the post. That was on Thursday morning. Friday lunchtime, I received the bottle. I started spraying it. By Saturday, I sprayed it onto her nose and into her vulva, anything just to hit mucus, get signal in there. And this cow, as I said, was flat on the ground. And Saturday breakfast time, there she was sitting up. And I was like kind of going, oh, we're beginning to turn here. And I went away to my breakfast. I said, hey, I look after you after your breakfast. Came back 20 minutes later. My father was coming against me. And he goes, listen, call the guy there to collect that cow. That cow is dead. And I was like, no, she was only sitting up 20 minutes ago. I said, and I opens the door, and there was the cow standing for the first time in 5 days. And I says, the cow inside here. Listen, if you don't know what a dead cow is, I'm going to have to give up with you. And I says, well, you come up here and try and explain to me, is that cow dead? And he walking up to the drum. That cow's actually alive. You know, she'll make it. And I was like, yes, because my father thought I had lost my marbles with homeopathy. That was kind of one of his beginning to kind of realize there's something here. And hey, presto, I worked on her, and she went through another course of antibiotics again. And she made a full recovery. This cow went from literally being, we'll call it a 700 kilo animal to literally a 300 kilo animal in 2 days. The weight just fell off her. And 90 days later, she was back to full weight. Happy out, chewing the cud around with her friends again.
Oh, you got to make me cry. That's gorgeous.
Yeah. And you know what? We ended up becoming best friends. I was calling her by name, and everything was like, you saved my life. I like you. And with homeopathy, there's a connection between man and beast. It's the cows just. And there was another incident I had then, which a few years later actually, was I had a cow had mastitis in the milking parlor, gave her the remedy, and when I gave it to her, you could see, she was like, it's just relaxed. I was like, wow, something happened there. And then I had the remedy in my pocket, and I went down the yard down into her housing, and I was walking around just to see was she all right. Next minute, there was one walking up behind me, and she tapping my pocket, and she knew the remedy was inside the pocket. And I actually got onto my course through her. I said, by any chance, does the cow know that the remedy is in my pocket? And he goes, yeah, that's the power of homeopathy. They can pick up the signal, and that's the exact remedy that was solving her issue. And it did. Cow got solved without antibiotics. Mastitis cleared up.
Well, that is cool. Powerful. And actually, I'm with you on that one, because we had a bunny that was a free range bunny, just free ranging in our backyard. And he was a little bit wild. But then one day he had this eye infection, and I gave him homeopathic remedies, and it helped. And after that, he was so nice to me. I swear he was like, oh, okay, you were right. You helped me. It was actually really amazing. So yeah, animals really do know.
Yeah, they do, without a doubt.
Yeah. And you mentioned a little bit about administration as well. You said about spraying in the mouth and in the vulva, but what are some ways that you would administer the remedies to cattle?
Well, in large numbers, water, through the drinking water. would be a big one. And I suppose I don't know, I put in X amount of, like I'd have my pellets and I put them into a milk bottle, could be a 2 litre, 3 litre milk bottle from the house, and fill that up with water. And as I'm walking to the trough, I give it a good shake. And then when I put it into the drinking water, I just beat the water with a stick or something like that, just to what they call medicate the water. There must be something working because my herd fertility is superior. My animals are healthy, they're calm, they're relaxed. Anyone that walks into the yard are utterly fascinated at how relaxed they are. And life is good. I had my first calf yesterday at 11 days early. But I suppose, look, those things happen. But literally before, everything was a mess. It was just everything was calving when slipped into the breeding seasons. You had to have cows finished calving and you were in the breeding season going out to 15 weeks. And there was no such thing as a dry period where you dry off your cows and they go on their holidays and you get to put your legs up for a number of weeks and relax and recuperate for the next season. Whereas now everything has a place. Calving is pretty much going to start around the 28th of January. It will finish the 10th of April. I can write out my diary. I know what's going to happen.
Is the homeopathy helping you with that? Like making sure?
Oh, yeah.
Really? How?
Well, what I kind of like to say is I start my year at the dry period. So when the cows are being dried up, they get urticaria 6C, which helps them to dry up. So there's no antibiotics. And that's a big thing that's happening now in Ireland, and in particular, I'd say the European Union, is like, why are we giving drugs to healthy animals? As in, you help them to dry up with antibiotics and just in case they get an infection. But if you give urticaria, it sends a signal to switch off, to stop milking. And they just literally soak up themselves. And it takes the pressure out of the event. And like the event is like, see, they don't all get dried off together. They're dried off over a couple of weeks. So you have the cows as a herd. They're with their friends. And I would then dry off with, say, 10 cows. The 10 cows then go to another field, or in my situation, would go to the other shed and they're penned into that side of the shed, away from their friends. So like they're looking over the barrier kind of going, but why are they still going into the milking parlor? What about me? Is there something wrong with me? And then the stress. And then they hear the parlor going, the milking machine going. I said, but they're being milked. Why can't I be milked? And then, yourself, you start enlarging, and then they're getting stressed, and then there's maybe a bit of pain or something to that effect. And then hence, with stress allows infection to get in and have a field day on the poor animal. Whereas you simply just go in with urine, put it in the water over a number of days, and it takes away that stress. It takes away that anxiety. They just dry up, and life is good. And the best thing of all, no antibiotics.
Amazing. And that must really bring your bills down a lot as well. I can imagine it must probably cost quite a lot if you have got quite a lot of cows and mastitis goes through the herd.
Oh, definitely. I'm looking at 80% reduction in veterinary costs. I'd say if I might see I see the vet, maybe just officially they come in to do a TB test once a year. And then if you have to do an emergency call, I'd say at most, if I see them twice, that'd be a lot in the year.
Amazing.
I go into the shop to buy drugs, to buy antibiotics, buy dosing, parasitic dosing. I'm a stranger in the shop. We're not exactly on a first name basis anymore.
So even your worming, you're able to control with your homeopathics as well?
Yeah, big time. As one vet said to me, the most profitable farmers out there are the understocked farmers. Like there's lads there, they're overstocked, stressed. Like the cows like their space, and we've got the shy cows, and you've got the ones that lack confidence and all that, and younger cows. And one fella said you should have a 10% rule. Let it be, in particular with housing, there should be 10% space available. So if you have 100 cubicles, only 90 cows should be in there. So that the shy cow has somewhere to go. She can pick a bed away from the cow that's pulling her or being at her or whatever. And another thing is you see how there's a pecking order and how there's family groups and how they stick together.
With cows? I didn't know that. Yeah. I see that with my chickens. I didn't know the cows have that too.
Oh, yeah. And and people would be saying, oh, you're taking the baby from its mammy. To be honest, the cow is more interested. Like she's like hunger, as well we know what humans. I mean, talk to anybody that has suffered from hunger. Everything else goes out the window. It's the baby. No, I want my food. And like they're after calving, They want to eat, and then they realize that there's more, and they're eating, and then being milked. Then the energy levels go down. They need to eat. They know you're there. They know you're minding their animal. And in particular, if they actually have a heifer calf, they'll actually work harder that year, because whatever it is with nature is like, I must provide for the female, for the next generation. Whatever it is about the bull calf, there's no kind of get up and go with the mother. She's like, it is all right, he'll survive, he'll be fine. Kind of. And that's scientifically proven. They've proven that. And so then 2 years later, that your replacement calves come back in, and you just see how they all shift into their family groups. And kind of the heifers will stay together, but if you look carefully, you'll see that the mother isn't too far away. She's there in the background. And this is 2 years later, they're meeting each other again. It's amazing, especially with
so you've been able to use the homeopathy to regulate when they're getting pregnant and when they are being dried off, and has it helped with fertility as well?
Oh, hugely. I mean, I think the national average would be around 12% empty rate after, we'll say, a 12 to 15 week breeding season. So that would be in Ireland with a spring calving block. That would be, let's say, from the 1st of February, there'll be lads there calving cows on the 1st of May, which is just uneconomical. And they're trying to keep the cows and everything else. And it's, to be honest, 9 to 10 weeks is more than enough, because after that you're getting tired, and you're also getting busy because the grass is beginning to grow and everything else. With me, I was there, but now that's more important.
That's very important. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you use homeopathy on the farm? Do you use it much for yourself or for your family?
Yeah, well, I suppose, again, using remedies on the animals and seeing them working. I mean, there was Ignitia for separation, which is a big help. And I've used it, actually, I had a goldfish, but my mother had 2 goldfish, and she got them from a friend of mine. He was moving house, and he just said, look, do you want to take them? I said, we did, no problem. And they were happy out. They're 2 lovely goldfish. And there must have been a falling out between the 2 of them. Now, I don't know, were they brother and sister, or siblings, or were they husband and wife, or partners, or what? I haven't a clue. But what I do know is that one of them had a white spot. So it must have been a major falling out, because at first we thought they were actually playing with each other, chasing each other around the tank. So anyway, you'd be sitting there, and the tank is next to you, next to the head of the table. So you'd be just sitting there at the chair, and in the silence of the kitchen, you'd just sipping away in your cup of tea, and the next second, you're like, what's that? You look around, you see the fish, they fell out the white spot, literally slapping your man up against the side of the tank. And so after a while, we're kind of going, your man's actually bullying this other fish around the place. No way would he let her, we'll assume it was for him and her. Yeah. No way would he let her come up to eat at the surface of the tank when we put in the flakes. Have to stay down the bottom, hiding in the corner, and hopefully something will flow down to the bottom and she'll be able to pick up. So anyway, this went on for a number of years. And one morning I came in to feed him, and I opened the tank, and there was this fish floating in the tank. And who was it but your man with the white spot? So I looked into the tank and well, now, I says, either you murdered him during the night or else he died of a heart attack. One or the other, but there's one thing for certain, you have the tank to yourself now. Happy days. So took out the fish, that was it, end of story. And my mother rang me a couple of days later, and she says, come here, is there anything you could do for the fish? I said, what's wrong with you? And she said, honestly, he hasn't eaten for the last 2 days. He's down in the darkest corner of the tank and won't come out. Oh. And I was like, that's impossible. I was led to believe that goldfish have a 2 second memory span. I said, 2 days later, the goldfish is grieving. It's just not grieving the loss of its friend or buddy. It's grieving the loss of its psychotic bully. I said, that's impossible. But anyway, I picked up, and it was actually one of the very first remedies that I had doing the course that I did in November 17. So I just said, Ignitia, separation, grieving remedy. So I went down to the house, and there was a fish down, turned inwards into the darkest corner, floating mid-tank. They were all the symptoms we were told about that they did to watch for. They're literally whatever symptoms. And So I said, look, all I can do is put in a couple of drops, got a fork, beat the water with the fork. I said, look, I can do no more. I said, anyway, it's only a goldfish. So anyway, mother rang me 20 minutes later and she said, you won't believe this, she said. I was like, what? She says, the fish is swimming around, up and eating its food. Fish lived for,
Oh,
fish lived for another 3 years on its own. So
that's
if that doesn't
impressive.
convert,
I
yeah,
don't
that
think we've
doesn't.
ever had a goldfish live longer than a year or two. So that's pretty impressive. You've had some accidents on the farm as well, from what I've heard.
Yes, yes, yes. I suppose I've two incidents actually. I suppose farming is it's manual work and it's wear and tear and everything else. And look, even office workers will have sitting down, your spine eventually is compressing, and we have back issues when we get into our 50s, I suppose. So one day I was minding myself and everything else. But anyway, one day, literally, I got a spasm down the back of my leg, down my sciatica, literally leg froze, my back seized, and I was like the pain was so horrendous, and literally bottom of my leg literally turned into a concrete block. But it wasn't swollen, but it was
Mm.
like this massive lump of something. So anyway, I went to a physio. Physio said to me, right, okay, we've got very strong anti-inflammatories and painkillers. And I says, oh, I do homeopathy. And she goes, oh, she says, I completely agree with that. My husband is a farmer himself. And he actually has been using homeopathy and we've seen it. She says, so I'm completely for that. And she says, what would you be using? So of course, boom, boom, boom. I was like, Hypernica, Arnica, Bellus Borellus. She says, gee, you know your stuff. and, and I was like, oh yeah, I promote education courses in homeopathy to farmers. So I know my stuff and I use it on the animals and I've seen it working. And she says, oh, go ahead. She says, work on that. She says, and so on. So I was taking away the remedy. Oh, and she literally was telling me, this is November. And she said, look, you're in a pretty bad situation. You will need to get a CAT scan done to see what is actually going on. And from my experience, she said, like, you could be looking at an operation here and being out of work for 6 weeks. I was
Wow.
like, no, 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 no. I'm a farmer. I don't go out of work for 6 weeks. Maybe go on holidays for the week, but no, no, not 6 weeks. And she's like, no, I'm sorry, this is the situation. And I was like, no, no, I'm going calving cows in February. It's end of. So I was like, straight away, I was like, yeah, definitely take the remedies, definitely take the remedies. So I went out anyway, and it was the vet that I was dealing with the cows is, of course, a homeopath as well. And he's retired now, Tom Farrington. And I rang him. I goes, listen, I'm going calving cows in February, so this has got to be resolved. He's okay, Pat. You know what to do? I goes, I do. Just making sure. And he goes, such and such. And no, he actually then, so he said, yeah, it was a Hypernicum 200, Arnica and Bellus Borellus, all 200s.
Mm.
Take them regularly in your water, whatever. And I said, look, it's sciatica down the back. And he actually, I think it was Nux vomica 10M, which actually has
Oh.
an affinity to sciatica. He just only gave me 3 or 4 pills of that. He says to take one of them once a day for the 4 days. And literally, I started getting movement back in my back and my sciatica. Literally, the leg just kind of untense, it became less tense. I was like, God, I couldn't. I said, no, between everything, every remedy was doing its job. So anyway, I was going swimming. I was exercising as much as possible in the pool. Went back to the physio. Physio's like, she's good. She says there's an improvement here. She said, but still, you're trapped. There's a nerve trapped, and go away and get your scan done. And again, she was painting the worst picture scenario, which would put anybody to taking remedies. Now you could be in a wheelchair, and you could be actually having a bag as well. I was like, da 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 da. So anyway, she went in, got my scan done. And at this stage, I would say I came off the anti-inflammatories and the painkillers. And when she said to me in the second visit, no, she said, honestly, you need to go back on them. You have to do the full course. You have to throw everything at this. If you want to go calving cows in February, this is what you need to do. It's like, okay, so I'm back on the drugs again. And I took them with the remedies, of course. And that was November. And I met the consultant who was 72 years of age. He was pretty much on the verge of retirement. So this guy had a lot of experience, was very well known. And I met him the week before Christmas, whatever, third week of December. And literally I walked into the office, not a bother to me. And I sat down, he's looking at me and he kind of going, there's something wrong with you. So I went in, he did a couple of checkovers. And next thing, he says, I see it. And you could see the nerve twitching in the back of my calf muscle. Because he says, yeah, you have a trapped nerve. He said, right. So he says, and sat me down anyway. And he's looking at his screen. And then he's looking at me. And he's looking at the screen. Then he's looking at me. And then he looks at the looking down from the top of the spine down. And he was like, wow. And then he looks at me and then he goes, right, just to tell you, you are one very lucky man. I was like, all right, okay. If I had seen you 6 weeks ago, you would have been on my slab the following morning, no questions asked, operation.
Wow.
I have only seen this 6 times in my life where literally the body, and one of the principles of homeopathy, has gone in the direction of cure. Your body has cured itself. And he said, literally, and he showed me then the scan, because you see that little air bubble in there inside in your vertebrae. Literally, the body has forced the bubble out and has come around and is going to get out of the spine, and your nerve is now free. You will not have any more issues. That was 5 years ago. And
Wow.
he was flabbergasted. So then I turned to my wife and I said, what's that stuff you put me on? What do you call that stuff? Those sugar pills you were giving me. What was homeopathics? And he's like, witchcraft, keep away from that stuff. I was like, that's what I said to her too. Gosh, yeah. And I was there looking at him. Kind of going, and you had me on your slab, opening my back, laying me out for 6 weeks. Good luck. And I was gone out the door, and I took it easy for the next number of weeks. I waited to make sure, and I haven't looked back since. But
the Irish sure can tell a good story, Pat. You have not disappointed. I love it. That's awesome.
But actually, look, I suppose I'll give you one more story, and it's a sad story. Before I suppose we'll talk about the courses that I promote for any farmer that's willing to listen to me. My best man, we met in college, and we got on like a house on fire from day one. We met when we were 20. We did everything together. It was literally like he was the brother I never had. And yeah, we got up to a lot of mischief, as two guys would. And so anyway, unfortunately, he was diagnosed with cancer in January. I met him between we being married and young children. We're at this stage we were only meeting maybe twice a year on the phone. I would say twice a week. We're literally like two women nattering away for it. Some phone calls could last 2 hours. Like, so anyway, and I remember meeting him in January of 18, and it was just something amiss. It just didn't look right. I won't say look right. He was sitting differently. There was something. There was, I suppose, an energy. It was just something lacking. So anyway, I met him then in the following June, and we had a couple of pints, and we had in Ireland that spring, we had a horrendous spring. We had snow in the end of February, March, and then in Cork, there was literally just mist just settled over us until the 1st of May. So the cows did not go out. They were in. We had our first hurricane on October 17th. So the cows came in October, and they were still in the shed on the 1st of May. And so it was a very long, difficult spring. And a lot of farmers, we usually do lose weight through the spring, but we lost extra weight that spring. So anyway, I met him that night, and he walked in, and he was gaunt. And I was like, whoa. I says, the spring wasn't nice to you. I said, you definitely lost weight. And he goes, he says, I'm hungry. I'm full, but I'm hungry, and I'm hungry, but I'm full. I don't know what I'm doing, he says, and so on. And anyway, we had a couple of pints. We went away. And then about 4 or 5, I'd say actually 4 or 5 days later, he said, I'll go in there for tests, like, and so on, so on, so on. So anyway, he rang me back then a fortnight later, and he goes, yeah, results come back, he said, and I've actually I've cancer in the stomach and secondaries in the liver. I mean, I was totally naive to this. I was like, yeah, but sure, like, you'll get over it, won't you? Like, sure, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he didn't get over it. Unfortunately, he died in December 18. And I remember, of course, older people will always tell you, he says, whatever you do, make sure you chat to the guy, go see the guy, everything else. Because when he's gone, he's gone. And you will have regrets. And of course, I didn't understand that. And of course, I didn't even realize either how close we were. And anyway, he passed away, and the lads were asking me, how are you getting on, Pat? I said, oh, grand, sure. He was only a friend. It's not as if he's a family member, a blood relative, you know? Sure, look, that's grand. And then it was around this time, in spring 19, I was just working away, and all of a sudden, it was like literally darkness descended, total darkness. And I literally just dropped the shovel, jumped into the car, drove down to my house. And the wife and the kids are in the kitchen. I says, get the kids out, get out, get out. I says, she says, what's wrong with you? I says, get out. I need to talk to your mother. And my mother, or my wife, is a nurse. I expected that she would have known something. Like I said, I can't see. I said, I can't. And then she probably then realized what was happening was, that whatever I was beginning to was depression or whatever. Yeah. Grieving is depression, grieving. So it literally, that spring, it was horrendous. Getting out of bed, it was putting one foot in front of the other. And at one stage, I said, if this is what I'm going through, what's his brothers and sisters? What's his wife, his children going through? What's his mother going through? I said, why am I suffering? And you had no control over it. And it was awful. I mean, at one stage, I remember a cow calving, and I just stood there looking at her and saying, oh yeah, that's grand. I just walked away. Now, granted, cow or calf were fine, but usually I just couldn't get involved. I was emotionally switched off. And eventually but thankfully one of my symptoms wasn't a symptom of depression, is rambling and ranting and talking. And I was ringing everybody. I was ringing people from 20 years ago. And one guy copped it, and he actually rang another guy that was in college with, because I think you better ring Pat, just have a chat with him. And this guy out of the blue rang me, and I was like, hey, how are you, Colin? How are you getting on? And we had a great chat for about an hour and a half. And it was actually a very uplifting. It kind of shot a bit of light, shall we say, in that darkness. I was all 3 years wondering, why did he ring out of the blue? As I said, a little light. But anyway, I went to my vet, as I said, Tom, who, and I just rang him. I said, look, I'm in a desperate place. I said, I'm just finished. I finished the calving, and I went to group counselling, and that helped, but it was still awful. And last cow calved, and it was like literally, right, I finished that, and I just went down home, and I've never done this. I went straight up the stairs to bed and put my head under the quilt and stayed there for the day. I couldn't care less if the world fell down. That was it. I just didn't want to see anything or anybody. And I knew then, like, yeah, I seriously need to get myself out of this. The breeding season's coming up in 2 weeks' time. I need to be focused. I need to be working here. So then I contacted Tom, and he goes, right, okay, come down to me for an appointment. And the beauty of going to see a homeopath compared to going to a GP is a homeopath will sit there, and they will sit you. I would say a good homeopath will definitely give you an hour and a half, and an even better one would probably give you 2 hours if needs be. And I sat there with Tom for 2 hours, and I'd say a good half hour was just sitting in silence, staring into space. And he would do a typing on his computer, and he was like, Pat will come around eventually. And then I started rambling again, and everything, I just left off. I went back to my junior infants, and intestines and that. And then eventually he put me on, he says, right, he says, I'm going to give you Aurum, which is made from gold.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give it you 1M. And I'm only going to give you 4 of these now, he said, and come back to me if you have any symptoms whatsoever, if you have any downers. I was like, okay. And I was like, he said, it's not made from gold. And I was like, okay. And he said, look, I'd say 50% of your therapy or your procedure was actually sitting here today talking. You've got an awful lot of stuff off your shoulders today, he said. So anyway, he gave me that, and he gave me a couple of strong doses of, I think, Ignitia as well, and I took the Aurum. And I can honestly say within about 5 days, it was like as if the darkness just dissipated. It was like as if the sun was coming up over the horizon in the back of my head. I could see light. I was beginning to walk lighter. And I was like, no, it couldn't be, and so on. But then one day around lunchtime, about 2 weeks into it, from seeing him, all of a sudden took a horrendous dip. I just didn't want to be near an animal. I didn't want to be near anything. No cow. I didn't want to. Eventually, by 4 o'clock that afternoon, going milking, I couldn't even bring the cows in from the field to go milking. I just about got them in. And then I just can't go milking. I cannot stand near them. I don't want to, but I wanted to be near humans. I wanted to didn't even want to talk to them. I just wanted to be in the company of humans, which is pulsatilla, being in your own company. So I rang Tom, and I explained it to him, and he goes, right, he says, take pulsatilla. Have you got pulsatilla? 30C will do you, he said, but if you have 200, luckily, being a farmer, I do have those remedies available to me.
Uh-huh.
And I said, yeah, 200, just take one, he said. And I took one on the tongue. And I'd say within 10 minutes, I was down in the milking parlour, singing away, happy days, couldn't care
Oh.
less. When those little things happen, you just, and to use homeopathy for, let it be on animals, or you use it for yourself, working so that you're at one with yourself, at peace
Mm.
with yourself, and at peace with nature. That episode was brilliant. Again, there was a couple of dips along the way, and then Tom said to me, "That's what's going to happen." But eventually, the dips will get less severe and
Mm.
everything. And I went to him for another session, and he said, "We might have a third session. We'll see how we get on." And I'm a big believer in the seasons, the 4 seasons, that you have to go through the 4 seasons to come the full circle.
Mm.
Whatever it is about the universe or about the world, that I went on holidays the previous year and the news had broke that he was not going to make it very good. And then I went on holidays the same time in 19, came back and I was like refreshed, a new beginning.
Mm.
And I said, right, I must go and start out getting my course up and going for the autumn,
Mm.
my homeopathy course. And I met Tom then in December, and even he was completely gobsmacked at how
Oh.
a transformation. He says, "You're back to yourself, happy days." And he's referred to it several times to me since. He said, "Of all the things," he said, "I've seen," he said, your bounce back was, yeah. He said, and I said, "Oh yeah," and I said to him, I said, "How deep?" I said, "How far had it gone? How far down the rabbit hole has it gone?" And he said, "To be honest, he said, he says, I'm 40 years at this. And I said, to be honest, you were one step removed from the loss of a child."
Mm.
I was like, but I said, he was only a friend. He wasn't a blood relative. And he goes, "That doesn't matter." He says, "We don't know what the two of you were in a previous life. He
Mm.
could have been husband and wife for all we know. He could have been
Yeah.
two brothers.
Yeah.
But the two of you met in this life.
Mm.
And unfortunately, Dennis left. And
Mm.
this is it." And yeah.
I'm so grateful that you are so brave to share the story, because actually just today I was interviewing Marcus Fernandez and he was talking about his interest in like the area he was wanting to go into more now is mental health, specifically for men. And that's an area that I feel is massively under serviced. So
Yeah.
to hear you speak that and be so vulnerable and sharing that, I think is very powerful, because in doing that, you're actually allowing other men to follow suit, and actually it's okay to share and it's okay to ask for help. So I'm really grateful that you shared that story, because that's very powerful. I hope any other, especially man listening to this episode, will think of giving homeopathy a go and reaching out and getting that help far out, because for somebody like you come across as a very happy person generally. So for you to go down that hole must have been a really big, traumatic, very deep grief, and how encouraging that homeopathy was able to help you move through that. And obviously very supportive family as well, but how amazing.
Yeah. As I said, every time you have an interaction with homeopathy, you're blown away by it.
Yeah.
But as I said,
Amazing.
that was amazing. That was an amazing
Mm.
episode. Yeah. And as
And
I
all,
said, it was my transition from my old world pre-homeopathy during the
mm,
course of November
mm,
18. My friend was dying. By November 19, I was on the other side of my transition
mm.
to where I'm on Facebook as the Homeopath Farmer. I promote homeopathy
Oh.
for farming. But I also, when I get chatting to, it seems to be, it's usually the farmers' wives that ring me, not the farmers.
So
And
tell us a little bit about how people can study homeopathy, because you've got some online courses and things. So how do people get hold of that?
yeah, there's Whole Health Agriculture or wholehealthag.org. It's a reference website with all plenty of scientific papers, literatures, farmers' stories, case studies. It's a go-to farmers website. I think it's roughly around 40 British pounds,
Mhm.
maybe 50 euros to sign up for this. There is, I think you interviewed him, was Jeffrey.
Jeff
I can't.
Johnson?
Yes, Jeff
Yeah.
Johnson.
Yeah.
He actually made a fantastic farm repertory.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So he's actually freely gave that to them
Oh.
to access, and that's all in there. There's Tracy Simpson from New Zealand, who's now the new owner of Homeopathy Farm Services. She's in there giving her stories. If homeopathy can work for 90 cows, it definitely works for 900 cows, because that's what
Yeah.
she has. And she's kind of on board as one of our ambassadors. I'm kind of the Irish ambassador
Yeah.
for it. And then they have an online course. The course, I think, is 495 British pounds, about 600 odd euros. But thankfully, the Irish government likes to see farmers getting educated and learning stuff. So if you book through what's called NOTS.ie, which is National Organic Training Skill Nets, they offer a 30% discount, which is a nice handshake.
Yeah.
For Irish farmers living in the Republic, shall we say, that they can avail of that. And it's online. And one lad just recently, eventually, he had bought it last year, but eventually got around to sitting in front of the computer. And he was ringing me, asking me about this and about that, and so on. And I was like, grand. And I said, how are you getting on? And he goes, yeah, I'm halfway through it. But to be honest with you, Pat, you never mentioned to me that I needed about 5 ink cartridges and 2 bales of paper. So I was like, all right, okay, thanks for that. I said, but now what I say to most farmers that I'm chatting to is that, look, give this remedy a go, I said, and if you see an improvement, I said, and how much will I pay you for Pat for that advice now? Thanks very much. I said, I know, listen, the advice is free on one condition, that you get the remedy from whatever vet. There's about 11 vets in the country that are homeopathically trained. I says, contact that vet in your whatever the nearest vet to you. Contact that vet. They'll look after you. I said, if you see it a benefit, just do me one favor. Do the course. End of. That's all I wanted to see, is doing the course. And yeah, a few of them I have signed up and taken the effort. But it's a very, very good course because it's designed around the farming calendar. So it's kind of designed through the 12 months of the farming calendar. The remedies that you need, as I said at the start of our chat, from drying off of the article urine to pre-calving, to post-calving, to pre-fertility, to post-fertility, the weather remedies, and your separation, your transport remedies, all those events that go on, remedies that you give, and that just make life on a farm so much easier for both man and beast.
That's amazing. And then also, if people want to get hold of you, they can find you on Facebook as the Homeopath Farmer.
That's correct. Yeah.
Excellent.
Facebook, and I'm more active on Facebook than on Instagram. I just cannot figure out Instagram.
I know. I think it's a generational thing. It took me a while as well. Like I've actually got somebody else that does most of that for me because I figured that I find that.
But I think my new journey for 23 going forward is I've touched base with Camilla Scher. It was actually through your podcast.
Cool. I'm glad.
I was like, who's this woman? I says, and then I didn't realize she was actually just starting her 5 discussions. So I signed up for that, and wow, I said, you can actually do that? This is amazing. So yeah, I've just signed up to her now recently this week in Patreon.
Cool. That makes me so happy to hear that.
Yeah, and that was all because of you.
Oh, yay. I'm glad it's helping.
So yeah, I've been listening to her, and it's wow. And I think that there is definitely a big opportunity going forward for using homeopathy on the soil.
Wonderful. And, that's a whole other ball game, hey?
Oh yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Pat. It was wonderful to chat with you. Thank you for your stories. You're a great storyteller. And I look forward to chatting with you soon.
That's great. Okay, Eugenie, thank you very much. We'll chat soon.
Bye.
Bye.